Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Barbara Layton, and this is my co-host Jim Vrechos. And we are so happy to be here. We love this show because we get to spend time with some amazing people in this community who are doing extraordinary things and making a difference, as many of you are as well. And we know at this moment in time, during these chaotic times, connection is key. So I am so delighted to introduce our first guest, Antonella Bertello. And I have read, quote, "It has been said that Antonella moves fast. She loves fast cars, fast boats, and meticulous service. When it's time to slow down, she only needs to step into her award-winning oasis, the iconic Baker House in East Hampton, which has been selected by Condé Nast as the most excellent inn of the Americas." And I've gotten to know Antonella over the years. We are board members on the Chamber of Commerce, and we're also board members in the Village Foundation. So it is my honor and privilege to introduce Antonella.
Thank you for such kind words, Barb. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
seriously. So, I mean, there's so much I want to ask you because we love asking intimate questions, but tell us how this all happened and a little bit about where you grew up and the major influences in your life that led to the purchase of the Baker House and got you here. I know it's a long thing, but
It's a winded
It
story.
is.
The shorter version.
but
The
it's
shorter
all
You were on the
version.
it's all
boat there, you were
intertwined.
studying.
Yes, the family
Oh,
business
family.
has always been real estate. So when
Uh-huh.
people say, well, how do you call yourself? What do you do? I always say I'm a real estate entrepreneur because that kind of, takes care of covering everything that I do. We still have a lot of real estate businesses in Peru, retail, residential, commercial. My two brothers take care of that part of the business. One of them is this project that we're developing in the north of Peru, which is a very large marina. Well, a residential development with a marina, a private airport that we also own, and where super yachts and mega yachts will be able to come to use as their port and connection to the rest of South America. So we're working very hard on getting that done. We're already building the first 4 buildings of 18, about 439 apartments and 300 slips, boat slips, and for yachts up to 383 feet in length, which are
Wow.
the super yachts and the mega yachts.
And your
So-
father was in realty?
My father
business
was
as
in
well?
real estate, yeah,
started
so
there.
it started, with my father and
Father's
my
father,
grandfather as well.
grandfather.
And so my father used to take me and my brother, and when we were the second brother came 80 years afterwards. So he used to take us on weekends to see the buildings that he was doing. He also owned a brick factory. And that's how he started. He started with his brick factory when he was 18 years old. And he used to tell us, look at your other, get to know your other brothers and sisters. So these buildings, these things that he was doing were part of the family in a way, right? Which was very interesting. And so fast forward quite a few years after going to living in Lima, then in Miami, in Key Biscayne, which is a beautiful place. If you haven't been, I highly
yeah.
recommend it. And it's very similar to East Hampton in many ways. It's a small community, but it's 12 minutes, 15
What's
minutes.
the Italian connection?
The Italian connection
With
is that my grandparents were Italian.
I see.
And so was my father, clearly.
I see.
And they met on the boat coming from Italy to Peru between the world wars.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
And I'm very proud to be Italian and Peruvian, both. I've never actually lived in Italy for any prolonged time, but there's a lot of Italian in my blood, for sure. Also some Spanish and some Scottish and some French. So it's a mix of everything. But yeah,
Amazing.
I went to school initially in Peru, to a British school. Then I went to an American school in Miami. Then we moved to Costa Rica because of my father's businesses. And in Costa Rica, that's where I graduated from high school.
How many years were you in Costa Rica?
3.5.
Wow, so you
Yeah.
did a lot of moving around.
Yeah.
Wow, how was that for you?
I'm very adaptable to change, which is something that a lot of people don't quite understand. I always try to see change as a positive,
Right.
right? And not as a negative. So, okay, we need to change. Okay, because of XYZ reasons, how do we make the most out of this change?
That was such a mature, open attitude at such a young age.
Yeah.
What was your influence growing up to help you with that?
I think
Would you
it was
say?
mostly my father's influence.
father.
My father was a very practical businessman, a great father, a very down-to-earth man, very kind, and he was very approachable. You could ask him questions about everything. So even boyfriend questions, which, now at
Wow.
my age, I realize that for a father, some of those questions must have been a little too stingy, to put it somehow,
So
like.
more with your father than your mom.
Yeah, because I'm much more like my father in my way of being, of thinking, work-wise, and so
She was more in the background, your mother?
my mom is an incredibly intelligent and beautiful woman, but she was more molded to the Latin lifestyle, right? Which means that she was a housewife. She took excellent care of the kids, our schools, our social life, their social life, but she wasn't that involved in the business. And since I was a little girl, I was very curious. I had a fascination with paper. So my father decided that a good way to satisfy that fascination was to sit me next to him, and I had a little desk in his office, and to do the filing for him.
That's
So,
amazing.
because at that point we didn't really have laptops or
How old were you
computers.
when you were doing the
I
filing?
started probably working with him when I was 12, 13.
Wow, so there you go.
And I was filing, and he gave me a notepad, and he said, "Well, write any questions that you have. Do not interrupt ever my meetings. Do not do faces. You just file. You sit there. You listen, and you start any questions that you have. You write down, and on the way home, I'll answer them for you."
He taught you well.
So
And your mother, it sounds like your mother created the foundation and the context for the entire family.
yeah,
to
she
do it-
was the one that kept us
Yes, the whole foundation.
correct.
So, which was so important.
Absolutely. And she was the one that said no mostly, no, not mostly, more often, right? Because she wanted to make sure that we all three of us appreciated everything. So, one of the things in Peru is that every so often the major newspaper, El Comercio, would publish these amazing books where you collected figures, right? Like little cards, and you would stick them. So, and this was like all the rage with all the kids, right? Much similar to baseball cards, I guess, here, right? And so my brother and I, we would ask my father, please bring us some, cards. And he would go and bring us like 4 packets. So we had the book done in like a day or two, right? And part of the fun was to, okay, I'm missing, the football player of the Peru team, the soccer player of the Peru
Right.
team, number 10. Who has it? And to trade in school and all of that.
Did you play soccer too?
No, I never
No?
played soccer, but I love soccer.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. I
And-
guess that comes from both the Peruvian and the Italian side.
Right. And how'd you make your way up to East Hampton here?
Well,
And why the Baker House?
Yeah.
yeah, I actually came for the first time to the Hamptons in '94 after I met my ex-husband, an American from Philadelphia, although he's a true New Yorker. And I came to visit him, and we were friends at that point, and then the friendship developed into something else, and we got married. We were happily married for, I guess, 17 years or a little bit less than that. And then we decided that it wasn't the right situation for us anymore. So
Mhm.
we split and got divorced. It was a relatively friendly divorce.
That's good.
And so really he was the one that first introduced me to the Hamptons.
I see.
And for a very long time, well, 5 years more or less, we built a beautiful home in Amagansett in Stony Hill, and it was beautiful. And that building experience led me to say, well, we should be doing investment properties here because, it was a bit of a shock because in Peru we build with bricks and cement, right? And a lot of steel. And here we don't.
Right. Like in
So-
Europe. So Europe is the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when they brought the steel for the house that we were building in Amagansett, I looked at the steel and there were like 5 little sticks of steel. And this was a 5,000 square foot house, 2 stories,
Wow.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I immediately called the builder and I said, there's a mistake. There's no way that we can put up a house with only 4 little sticks of steel. And I called my architect, Francis Fleetwood, who was unbelievable. His mother was Chilean, so we had that, South American thing in common. We became very good friends. And Francis started laughing because Francis understood, because of his Chilean side, what I was worried about, right? But that's how we started doing investment properties.
In the mid-90s now.
Yeah, this is.
So that was a good
this
time,
is-
wasn't it, to
yeah,
start businesses?
Well, this was
Was it?
mostly, no, I would say it was early 2000s.
Early 2000s,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was still good.
Good.
And we did the first house in East Hampton Village on Egypt Close, and it went really, really well. I also decided to get my real estate broker's license, which I did. And I was actually the first Cochrane broker to have an exclusive in the Hamptons when Cochrane wasn't here. So I had a real estate license.
Cook Pony,
Uh,
right before,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So we got
That's a
our-
big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, that is a very big
That's
deal.
a big
And it was,
Absolutely.
I knew some of the people here in real estate, and they said, well, that's not gonna go very well. And
Mm.
I said, why? Because Cochrane is not an agency out here. I said, but I'm a real estate agent and it's my house. I'm building this house with my partners. I'm the managing partner, so why not? So I went to Pam Liebman, the CEO of Cochrane, and she said, why not? Let's give it a try. At that point, it was still Alan Schneider,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Cook Pony.
right,
like
who had
that
that
at
house
Reeve.
right by Baker House,
Yeah,
and that's a whole other story, but yeah, we can.
exactly.
So
Right.
then why the Baker House? Out
Yeah.
of so many different properties
Well,
to
because
choose.
we were looking with my partners to do a 1031 exchange, right? So then you defer the tax on,
Right.
and you use the tax to build a bigger house and so forth.
Mhm.
And one of the partners said, we have to see this property, we have to see this property. And I looked at the listing, and first of all, it was on Main Street, right? Which is, for an investment property, probably not the best, the traffic and, right on Main Street.
No lack of parking in the way.
Exactly. So I actually decided, well, let's go and see, because the more properties you see, the more informed you are, regardless as a real estate broker. So we went to see it, and as soon as I walked in through the vintage wooden gate from the driveway to the patio, and I saw the house, I just said, there's something.
You feel like you're
I fell
back in
love.
Italy in a sense, right?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm-
Europe,
this-
definitely,
Europe,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, and I looked at it, and the more I saw, then I saw, the listing said that it had a pool, and there was no pool to be seen, right, outside. So I asked the broker, I said, where's the pool? He says, wait. And then they took me to the spa, which was already built with a small pool in the middle of the spa, but the room was just sensational, right? And I spoke to the owners at that time, and they, I said, well, how hard is it really to run, an upscale B&B in the Hamptons? And they said, well, it has its moments, but for the most part, it's very easy. And I said, well, hospitality, real estate, kind of merged together in a way. I said, okay, let's do it. So
But you knew as soon as you saw it.
I
You
fell
had,
in
you
love.
had
You
that
fell in love
feeling.
with it.
I fell in love
You
with the
had that
property.
feeling, you knew.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
that
that was
was
enough.
21 years ago. It'll be 22 in the
And
summer.
you only, the Maidstone Club is nearby, right?
Yes,
So that was, sort of your competition in a way, right? Or
the Maidstone Hotel.
Maidstone Hotel.
Yes,
But yeah,
yes.
right, not the club, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So, yeah.
There's
yeah.
nothing like the Baker House.
No, it's not.
Exquisite.
Thank you. Thank
It-
you very
it
much.
really is.
I was kidding before that I do have a bionic eye. And by that I mean that I have an eye that is really focused on attention to detail. And I can see things that most people cannot see. So, if things are centered, if something is out of place, if a pillow is not properly fluffed,
Right.
if a painting is a little crooked, that's one of my pet peeves, right? And
Same with me.
I have a
Yep.
wonderful, wonderful Colombian housekeeper that has been, uh, that I inherited with the house. I adore Isabel. And Isabel has a tremendous amount of qualities, but, the paintings she cannot put straight. And I bought her, the ruler with the little bowl. I bought like everything. And every so often, and also understandably, the core of the Baker House, so the middle part of it, dates back to 1648.
Wow.
So I mean, the walls are a little crooked, the floors are a little crooked.
That's not the room that you have the events in, right? The speakers and so on.
Well,
that-
it depends. We usually
That's where
have
I
events,
attended.
as opposed to many of the B&Bs here, our whole first floor is public space, except for the
Yes.
kitchen. We have two kitchens and the mud room in the back, right? Which is the disaster room, really. And the innkeeper's room back there. Basically, the whole first floor is public space. So we have, when you first come in, let's say from the patio, you have a small lobby where we now have the Baker House Boutique by Past Lifestyle, who's also, it's owned by a Peruvian woman, and all their products are sustainable or from sustainable sources and ecological. So that was the attraction about that. And we're doing quite well with it, and the products are absolutely beautiful and very responsible in a way,
Yeah,
right?
socially responsible.
Yeah, socially
Ecologically.
responsible, exactly.
But that's the aura of the entire space.
Yes.
When you walk into that space, everything is perfection.
Yep.
To the eye, to the soul, to the heart, really perfection.
It has a really incredible magic
You
on
don't
its
want to
own.
leave. You don't want to leave there. You just want to stay.
Yeah, and the back patio, we've hosted quite a few events for different people, including the East Hampton Chamber, the Greater East Hampton Chamber of Commerce, as you know, Barb. And it's just people come, and most people are immediately like 2 levels down of stress. And I think it's just that the place is so beautiful and calming and peaceful. It's only noisy if we have events,
It's so
right?
true. It's like you walk into that space and you're coming home to yourself. That's the feeling that you get there. And
Yeah,
that's why you don't want to leave.
yeah.
You know what I wanted to ask you? We're getting close. I have so many questions for you. In what meaningful ways has the purchase of the Baker House changed your life?
In many ways. I'm now considered a hotelier, right? So business-wise, it's been a great way to get to know a lot of really interesting people. But what I had not factored in when I bought the property, because I was all about doing real estate transactions, right, before, was the pleasure that I get from the Baker House, I mean, many times when I get really stressed out, and I'm a very calm person, but I mean, I get so many things thrown at me constantly that every so often I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little stressed out. I need to take a minute or two, and I just go out and I walk around the property.
That was my
You know?
next question. What do you do to stay, because you're so crazy busy. What do you do to stay grounded and empowered that you can share with the audience?
Well, one of the things definitely is that I go and I walk in my gardens. I touch the trees. I talk to the trees. I feel their energy. And the other thing is my two yellow labs. I take them to the beach,
Right.
on a long walk from Georgica Beach to Georgica Pond, or Maine to Georgica, or the other way around. And just, walking with those two crazy Labradors,
They need a lot of exercise.
Bella and Joya.
But you know, it sounds like what you've done is this incredible combination of your mom and dad. The peacefulness, the business. Are your folks still
My
with
dad
us?
passed away, unfortunately, when
Oh.
he was 46 from a horrible cancer.
46.
Yeah,
Oh,
so he
wow.
very young, and I'm the eldest child, so I had to take over the family business
Right.
with the help of my other brother, that's 3.5 years younger than me. So I was 22 and he was 18.
46.
Yeah,
Wow.
That must
Yeah.
have been a tremendous loss for you.
it was. It was. I really admire my dad, and I learned a lot. He taught me a lot,
You were thrust right into the business then. You
Yeah.
became
Yeah,
his
but
surrogate. I mean,
in a
you
way,
took over, right?
as I did well with him, he gave me more and more responsibility, right?
Wow.
And I spoke good English, well, the English that you're hearing. So a lot of whenever he needed to negotiate with English speaking people, he spoke a mumbled English. So he spoke perfect Italian. So he would ask me to translate, and so I spent a lot of time working with him.
Did you feel a lot of pressure at that age?
No,
Having
I
to-
did not. I
It
did
sounds
not.
like you loved it.
Yeah, I felt
Yeah,
very
that-
important.
that you
I
thrived
felt
on
very
it.
important, and I
Yeah.
was, not making any decisions because I always consulted with my dad. But as he taught me and really honed me to become a business person at a very young age, he also gave me more and more responsibility. So I think that gave me a lot of confidence. And even in high school, I was a very confident girl. I mean, I wasn't the ones that doubt. And even now, people say, how do you just like
It's
go
very
in,
obvious. Yes.
and do this and do that, and and don't you ever feel insecure and like maybe afraid of
But even if you are afraid, you're going to do it anyway because you know that you'll be able to. Period.
Yeah,
I'm very much
and-
like that as well.
yeah.
Even if you don't know something, you know that it'll.
Well, you find
it'll-
out what you need to find out and you
exactly right.
execute, right? I mean, you just
you have the-
follow through.
Yeah, and you have the confidence for that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. I always, would approach things is I jump first, and I know that I'll land on my feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And I think, there's always ways to correct if you start doing something that's not, perfectly right, right? And one thing that it was my aunt actually that corrected this in me. I was a perfectionist. And perfection isn't always good, isn't always a good thing, because if you strive constantly for absolute perfection, you might lose a lot of valuable time trying to make it perfect. If it's very good, that's good enough. If it can be perfect without spending hours on it making it perfect,
Right.
then you make it perfect.
Mhm.
But if it's very good, that's good enough.
Right. That's good. So
And
you
I think
found
that
balance.
yeah, and she also taught me to laugh at myself, which is another
Very,
very
very
good trait to have.
So, what do you fear? When you 3 o'clock in the morning, you're waking up, do you have fears?
The only thing that really wakes me up at 3 in the morning is if I have to meet a deadline of something, right? When I was young, it was like, papers, that you needed to turn
Oh,
in,
sure. Oh, yeah.
or, homework. Now it's mostly taxes, that you have to file, and my taxes are very complicated because, I'm a US resident, but, I have businesses here, businesses in Peru, so it's a little more complicated than for most people. So deadlines are not my fear, are my worry.
Worries, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deadlines.
Interesting.
Mostly. Aside from that,
Life is
No,
good.
life is good. I'm very grateful,
And your
very
connection
grateful.
to nature also is a really big help, right?
Yes,
Just to keep you grounded and empowered.
absolutely.
Because I know for a fact that you empower everyone around you. That's who you are. Whether it's your
I try.
employees, your friends, you do that. It's just who you are.
Yeah,
You know, I
I
wanted to-
really try. I mean, I like to see the successes of other people, of my
Exactly.
friends, my family. I think that if we all try really hard and we have a bit of luck, we can all be very successful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you one final question because we're about to run out of time. If you could be known for one thing in the world, what would it be?
Wow, that's a tough one.
Mm.
I think that I would like to be known as a kind, generous, and very fair person. I think that that's some of the most important values to me. I think that we all need to be kinder to each other, more generous, help each other more, in order for all of us to succeed. I think that my success should be shared with other people as yours. I don't think that, we should be selfish in that respect. And I think kindness is one of the most important things that is nowadays lacking.
Especially now, right?
Yeah,
Especially now.
put.
And
Well put.
just that alone empowers everybody else.
I agree.
I've known you for a while, Antonella, and you're doing it.
Thank
You're
you.
already doing it,
Thank you.
really. Just your presence in a room just emanates that love, kindness, generosity, really straight from the soul.
Thank you.
I agree
try.
with Barbara, and it's the first time I'm meeting you and hearing about your wonderful Labradors also, because I've
Yeah,
had
I love
Labrador,
my
they
girls.
really are very gentle, energetic, loving, as you are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anything else you want the audience to know before we close?
Well, just go for it. If you have
Yeah.
a dream, keep on dreaming and make it a reality. Don't just sit there waiting for things to happen. You need to make them happen.
And come visit the Baker House.
Oh, yes,
It's
and come and
beautiful.
visit us to the Baker House. We
Absolutely.
now have sunset drinks, we have afternoon tea,
Sunset
the
drinks.
spa,
Perfect.
Oh,
many,
wow.
many things, and it's a beautiful space to be in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is, especially at these times. We all need the peace. Antonella, thank you.
Thank you
you
so
very
much.
much.
Absolute
Terrific.
Such a pleasure to
pleasure.
be
What a
with
pleasure
both of
to have
you,
you.
to be
Thank
with
you.
you and to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you,
great.
everyone.
Thank you.
And don't forget, keep it real.